So you've got a savior for me? Yes, sir, I do. Fantastic. And we'll be starting from the very beginning with this fellow, literally with the carnal union of God and a puny human female. Oh, golly. Yeah. We've drawn detailed pictures and everything if you'd like to see what that looks like. Oh, please don't show those to me. Are you sure? The artist is, quite good. I've never been so sure I didn't want to see something in all my life. Suit yourself. I'm going to strongly suggest you leave any images and any explicit language out of the final draft. All right, sir, I'll think about it. Okay, fingers crossed on that one. So tell me about this woman who's agreed to be the mother of our savior deity. I didn't say she's a woman, sir, but I thought... I said female. Okay. She's going to be a teenage girl. What? Oh yeah, a fresh young virgin around the age of 15, give or take. Isn't it going to be hard for God to convince a frightened, innocent child to participate in something like this? Actually, it's going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, really? Yep. You see, the consent of this wholesome, inexperienced girl is neither requested nor required. Oh, it's not. What can I say? There are, perks to being a male god with ultimate authority over an insignificant human female. This whole scenario is making me extremely uncomfortable. You know, now that you mention it, me too. Couldn't God find some old maid, discuss his plans for a virgin birth of his avatar with her, and if she agrees to participate, open her womb and proceed from there? Huh? That does sound like a great idea. I know, right? An older woman would have a much better grasp of what she was getting herself into. Yes, she would. And there must be countless women who have never had the opportunity to conceive who would jump at a chance to do something as truly fulfilling and momentous as carrying God's child. Exactly. But God insisted we go with the naive, clueless teenager. Hey, if nothing else, it'll help legitimize the idea that if a male is powerful enough, it's okay if he uses a young female for procreation. That's a great point. God is so good. Always. So tell me more about this teenager. Her name is Mary, and she's already pledged to a nice fellow named Joseph. Oh, she's engaged. That'll simplify things. Yeah, her unexpected pregnancy is a bit of a scandal, actually, and because Joseph is faithful to the law, he plans on divorcing her quietly. You said Joseph is faithful to the law. Yes? And at this point, all he knows is that Mary's baby isn't his. Correct. Isn't the punishment for adultery supposed to be stoning? Oh yeah. So is Joseph going to be faithful to the law or not? I guess he can't or the plot won't happen. Then maybe you should change that verse to Joseph wasn't faithful to the law. Yeah. I'll change that later. Don't forget. I won't. So Joseph's intended bride turns up pregnant and he's never had sex with her. There are some extremely plausible ways to explain that situation without resorting to divine intervention. Obviously. So how is Joseph convinced that this pregnancy is the result of an immaculate conception? Well, we've come up with a couple of different scenarios to explain that. Oh, in one version, we're going to have an angel tell Joseph in a dream that the child's father is God. But in another version, we thought we'd have the archangel Gabriel go straight to Mary with the news while she's fully conscious. Interesting. So in the first version, Joseph actually believes the dream, buys a lock, stock, and barrel. Oh, a very credulous cuckold. I know, right? His gullibility is so convenient for the plot. Naivete as a virtue. We should lean into that. I'll make a note. Perfect. And in the other version, it's Mary getting the news from a conversation with a supernatural being. Yes, it's a fairly lengthy exchange. I imagine it is. Mary must have a few questions. Oh yeah, she's scared. Hopefully they discuss how the deed is done in very generalized, unspecific terms. God is just gonna come on her. Pardon me? He's gonna come on her. I mean, he's God. That ought to do it. Dude, you can't phrase it like that. Why not? Because it's gross. Can you imagine being in a Bible study and someone reads that line? It'll bring down the house. Fine. I'll change it to God will come upon Mary. That barely makes it better. You've got to come up with something that's less graphic. Tell you what, if people want a G-rated version, they can phrase it, God came to Mary. I think I can live with that. Great. So Joseph getting the news in a dream or Mary getting the news from Gabriel? Which version are you going with? I think we should keep both. Oh, keeping two differing versions of the same story is tight. Yeah. So what happens next? When the angel talks to Joseph in his dream, he tells him to name the child Jesus. perfect. It also tells him to name him Emmanuel. Why? To fulfill a prophecy of Jesus from the Old Testament. There are prophecies of Jesus in the Old Testament? Sorta. I've read the OT many times. Why is this not ringing a bell? You have to read it the right way. And what way is that? Through the miraculous lens of eisegesis. Don't worry about it for now. Oh, okay, I won't. All you need to know is it's amazing how often Jesus is mentioned in the OT if you know where to look and how to spin it. I don't remember. Is he ever mentioned by name? Not once. Huh. No, instead, we found a few random verses we think we can appropriate. How does that work? Well, these verses all have a word or two that kinda match the key phrases associated with Jesus. What kind of words are we talking about here? So, for example, in Luke, when the angel tells Joseph that he's supposed to name Jesus Emmanuel as well. Right, and that's really weird because the only time the name Emmanuel comes up in the Old Testament is in the book of Isaiah. Right, and the Emmanuel in Isaiah is born of a virgin. Okay. You realize the word for virgin can also be translated as young woman in our ridiculously imprecise language, right? Hey, shut up. So there you go. A prophecy of Jesus right there in Isaiah. But it's clearly not. What do you mean? Even if Emmanuel was born of a virgin, he's only in Isaiah to serve as some sort of weird chronological device. What are you talking about? Read the verses. The timing of his phases of development as a young child dictate the timing of when a couple of rival kingdoms will be laid waste. Is that what all that means? It's 2 sentences. It's really not that hard to comprehend. Huh. Whoops. Whoopsie. Okay, so it's not a perfect match. Look, we can just tweak the New Testament a little more to make sure those Old Testament prophecies match up better going forward. Are we really fulfilling a prophecy if we deliberately tailor the narrative specifically to satisfy the parameters of said prophecy? I sure hope so, because we're going to be doing that a lot more as we go down this road. It's like moving a dartboard after a player has thrown his dart, so you can have the dart hit the bullseye. Ooh, that sounds awesome. I think there's a better word for doing it that way. And what's that? Cheating. Look, I'm going to need you to get all the way off my back about my manufactured prophecies. No promises. Wait, what? No promises. You're supposed to say, sure, let me get off that thing. And then I say, great. And then we move on from there. And tell you what, just write your little stories and let's see if you can make this Jesus guy stand on his own merits. All right. Okay. What's going to help a lot is if you can stick to one version of events. Oh, I will. Absolutely. Great. So, tell me about the historic birth of our Savior. Oh,